Recording in progress, and then I'm gonna
So we're hoping.
pull up my PowerPoint here. You guys can plug down to slightly smaller size.
Spring, summer. Yes. I guess it's the same over there, but.
What am I doing?
What-
Slideshow.
Oh, yeah. That's what I found.
Gotta take that, right? Whether 20 below zero, or would you rather have
If you go to
another 7 inches of snow?
Oh, yeah, that's slideshow. There we go.
Sure.
All right, membership class, the final one of 3 classes here. I condensed it down from 4 classes to 3 this time around. So hopefully without any loss, anything crucial or fundamental, but trying to get through all of our material in these 3 sessions. So let me open us in a time of prayer. Do some quick review. And thanks for you followed through faithfully 3 weeks of classes. So impressive. And for those that couldn't make it, I think Ron and Susie are out, and Michael and, oh gosh, Alyssa. Yeah, Alyssa, there's 2 Alyssas here. Good, excellent. I'm gonna try to work on these names here and are out. But if you guys are watching this later, thinking of you guys as well. So yeah, let me pray as we jump in today. Father, thank you so much for the privilege of being a part of a family, a church family. It's broader than our nuclear family. Just recognize that as a blessing from your hands to be part of something bigger than ourselves, to be able to use the gifts you've given us. To be able to be in a place really devoted to knowing you more deeply and we make you known to the world. And so I pray as we go through and work through this material and content, just a wonderful time to continue to get to know each other better, get a better sense of what you're doing here at this church, and how we can be part of it. So bless our time. Would you honor the commitment each person is putting into this? And beautiful season of growth, maturity. I pray history wants to be a wonderful, welcoming place for relationship. Thank you for this time. Thank you for all those that put together the food, to make it happen. Bless the time today, in Jesus' name. Amen. So, all right. So I am gonna sitting on a little tea. I'm hopefully just about to kick this cold of mine. My wife wants to call my man cold here.
Did you have this last week too?
I did, yeah. So this one has been one of these really on sustaining things. So I'm staying as far away from this. But hopefully I'm on the mend here. So it's nice that I had the preacher already lined up here. So I was able to kind of lay low this week and just get to do the membership class today. So, which is super fun. So let's see here. Get ourselves scrolling through this presentation here. Just to remind you once again, redemption. Oh, hey, Mike and Alyssa, I was just wondering, I'm like, you're making, you guys are totally good.
Great.
That's great. And there's just space for you as well. And there is pizza over there.
Oh, awesome.
Lots of pizza and lots of tasty, delicious things. I should have gone, as this say, we're running in search of. So you guys are you're just in time. We're literally just beginning. You guys are here for the 12 o'clock start.
They're on time, we're all just.
I love that about our church, man. The amount of mingle time and hangout time at your church, it's just it's an awesome expression of just being a family and hanging out together. So I love that. Coming early and staying. Redemption City Church is a biblical family committed to knowing God, making impact in Grand Rapids and around the world. And so we have kind of been working through this. We started with the biblical family. Last week we were doing the knowing God. This week we get to do the making him known. And so we're kind of 3 directions: the upward kind of knowing God, the inward being that life together, the relational element that we share, and then last week is the outward focus of our church as we head on out. So we get to talk a little bit about the outward face, just by way of review. We're members of the family of God, members of the body of Christ. First responsibility of members is knowing God. So we kind of talk about that from John 17. So the eternal life, they might know you, the true and living God. And so one of the things I wanted to start with this week is a little exercise about sharing your story here. Did any of you guys, whether you did or not, doesn't matter, because I'm still gonna break you out. Did any of you guys get to prepare, go through the sharing your story with Jesus as a hero, kind of get prepared for that? Was that helpful little article to read and think through and ponder? Any feedback on the that preparation process? Before I break you off into groups to share?
I liked it. So I don't necessarily feel comfortable sharing a testimony.
Yes,
I don't know. So I think that helped me like with an outline.
yeah. Yeah, the goal there is not to be something you have to rigidly follow every step, but just to give you maybe some different categories you might not have thought about here in your. It's like your origin story here, to buy a little, there's the fall element here that not yet. You get literary story, it was something bad that happened that usually kind of sets the story up. Then there's, God returned. What is God doing in this whole crazy story? And ultimately, there's a resolution. So it's a literary arc to all of these stories here. This is setting the conflict, the rising action, the climax, the resolution, the denouement, all the fun things there.
I was wondering if you were gonna say it.
I should try to throw that in there. So anyways, without any further ado, maybe what I'll do is break you guys up. Are you guys ready? If I broke you up into groups of two, to give you 5 minutes each to share your story here that you've been working on. And so, so once again, my only rule be, if you have a spouse with you, if we could break you up from your spouse here, who's probably heard your story, I'm assuming, many times before, and so, or knows it as well or better than you do. So, what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna set up a little timer here. Timer for 10 minutes here, and then
Can I do it for 5 and 5?
5 and 5. Yeah, we'll do 5 and 5. That's probably a good idea. That way it'll be
That way someone doesn't spend all 10 minutes talking.
that could very well happen. That would be a problem. Like, oh, this is so interesting.
No, not at all. Enough about you. Let's talk, enough about me, let's talk about you.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll give you guys a few seconds to kind of shuffle, break up into groups, and then I'll hit the 5-minute button here, and you guys can kind of
Yeah.
there you go. You can break them into the groups you had last.
Hello, Bob.
You wanna go first?
Means you're eating.
Obviously, I'm coming as a leader. Like it's big.
I don't know, this is something I've been thinking about for recently, because I.
It's exciting. Looks like we have
Like,
5 minutes each. Begin.
Oh, are we starting? Oh, okay.
Because
Already. Yeah. All right. I'll put everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that would be
Yeah.
Like, that's the.
But it only provided your shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, so then.
They continue by this way.
This is
Mixed focus.
It was kind of like.
Say what about.
It's like the first five is up. So if you want to finish up the next minute, I'm gonna reset this, get back for round two. Ready up, round two?
Well,
Thinking of. Very hard to balance, obviously. But once you have. It's pretty good. Yes, like. I'm probably pretty bad.
It's so worth.
So happy. Just when you. What is up your next?
Yeah, right.
Really ordinary point. This. Yeah, really what it is. It's really, there's two books that are like. So I've never read Oxford. The book that came out. The other kind of- Yeah, really. Like, and in response to that, someone inside. Danger. I think we can. So that kind of got rid of the outfit. And you feel that. Yes. Yeah, not. If it business. Some of these people like play. Yeah. Sure. Somewhere down time. Where I don't want to be. I mean, it's impressive. So, I guess. Some people. Yeah. Okay, we have one yet. All the small. Yeah, so I say that's. Not even, you know, it's. That's what we're celebrating like 35 years. I'm still working. It's when I graduated. Wow. So that was a long time. Say. Things come back to the that's how I feel.
One plus one. You're right. Actually, also it's voice. Thanks. It's on the sun. That's me. It's like. So exactly.
Oh, we kind of wrap your testimonies up here.
Sure.
Anything you guys took away from that experience? Anything that striking or surprising or interesting or
So good.
different from maybe ways that you talked about the story before, or had someone share their story before? There's lots more pizza, and there is also more snacks over there if you want to grab stuff, but yeah, any thoughts, anything out of that exercise? I think it's always a fun thing to get to know people better and just learn more of their story. But anything strike you guys in the doing that process? Having to articulate it.
You know, just as we were talking, we have kind of similar stories and Joey was just saying to me, and I think it's worth kind of just like neither one of us have dramatic,
Right,
like
agreed.
we weren't, someone didn't, minister to us in jail.
Yeah.
Some-
You weren't a drug dealer turned.
Right, exactly,
Chemist
exactly
with
right,
the,
but.
meth lab in your basement.
Exactly.
That would be cool.
Well, I didn't say that. No. But, and both of us came to Christ as young children, young people but her testimony was just so powerful for me to hear and
Yeah.
just God's goodness.
Yes, yes. Yeah, every story is miraculous in its own right, even the ones that feel, fairly standard.
Lackluster.
Lackluster. It is a story of God's grace, and I think the more you get zoned in on how God's met, even Christian, those of us who grew up in the church and have that church background, even for each of us, for it to become real, there had to be something, that God was doing in our lives that kept us, because there are a lot of people that grew up in the church that have veered off in 1,000 different directions. So, and for each person, it's often slightly different. So that's beautiful. I do love that fact about just because I don't have some people are like, I don't have a testimony. No, you have a story. Yours just might look different. Yours just might look more like the older brother in the parable of the prodigal son, the younger brother who ran away. You might have stayed for all the wrong reasons and tried to be the good person, but dealing with your own anger issues and resentment and frustration, like the older brother. And some of that in my story too. One of the reasons I love being in Grand Rapids, it's like there's a lot of older brothers who go out because you have a church culture and a lot of people that grew up in that. So. Whereas if you're in like, Vegas or something, there's a lot of people that have left and a lot of prodigals that are running out. Other thoughts or anything else that was striking to you?
I think just going through and being able to kind of reflect on life, and
Yeah,
even there are periods of time where it's been a while since I reflected and it's
Yeah.
like, oh wait, God was there during that time, and just I don't know, just being so far removed from different experiences. So I think
Yeah.
just getting that reminder too of what God has done.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I think too, because there are often points where we're not reflecting on what God's doing, but that doesn't mean God isn't doing anything in that season itself. I think the prime part of this exercise is to just think, oh, what was God doing in my life? Because everybody shared their story, of their kind of framework and vantage point, but they go, oh, what was God doing in that? That does take a more reflection and thought and introspection, like what was God doing in that season and, of doubt or drifting away or so I think that's a beautiful part of the discipline. And I love the fact that as you do it each time, you're like, oh, there's another wrinkle, there's another turn and twist in that journey in the story. And so, yeah, very, very good stuff. Anything else we would add here? I think it's great. It helps kind of tee up our topic for this week here. But definitely wanted to jump in, make sure we had a little bit of time for you guys to do it. And so the topic for this week here is making him known. So again, right out of John 17, as you sent me into the world, so I have sent them into the world, and the you there being as God sent you into the world, so I've sent them. So Jesus has sent them into the world. John 20:21 isn't as confusing with the pronouns there. As the Father has sent me, even so I am sending all of you. We're all sent people. We have a mission, and that the Latin word missio comes from that Greek word for being sent, to be a sent person. And so to be a missionary is really just to be a sent person, somebody who's been sent out. And so we're all, every member at Redemption City is a missionary, believe it or not. You're all sent in one way, shape, or form to the various people that God has you in your life. And so I love to riff on that word sent a little bit. It's we're all kind of sent ones, get an opportunity to live in the places where God is sending us to be on mission with him. Charles Spurgeon, the great Baptist preacher, said it this way. He said, the Christian church was designed from the first to be aggressive. It wasn't intended to remain stationary at any period, but to advance outward until its boundaries became commensurate with those of the world. And so, where the Christian church started with that little group of 100 people in the upper room, 120, I think it was, and then it began to expand from there and outwards around Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria, and then all to the othermost parts of the world, the Greco-Roman world, Europe, and if you follow church history, all the way over to the Americas, where we are today, and that gospel continues to expand. We're still, how do we sung about that today? That gospel truth that's still moving forward until every tribe and language, people and tongue gets to hear about Jesus. So we're part of that kind of story, both at a global level here and at a local level here. One of the other key, I think, scripture texts that I like to talk about is from the Lord's Prayer. Jesus prays that God's kingdom would come and his will would be done on earth as it is in heaven. So I have to think about that in Grand Rapids as it is in heaven. What does that look like for us to start thinking and dreaming and praying that God's kingdom would come here and that God's will would be done in GR as it is in heaven? Abraham Kuyper, the famous Dutch theologian, statesman, said this: there's not one square inch in the whole domain of our existence over which Christ, who is sovereign over all, does not cry by. And so we have this wonderful mandate there to go take the gospel to the world, to the nations, but then also make it a part of our everyday lives. As Dave Drew said today, 100%, 100% of life is what Jesus is looking for. And so, in most of our lives, there are percentages, whatever you want to call it, there are square inches of our lives that are a bit unruly sometimes and untidy. And, we get to bring those under the lordship of Christ. And so I just thought I'd start just with a little bit of open conversation, because making him known is kind of a big, broad category. What kind of things might be included in making him known, making Jesus known? I can make use of the whiteboard here. Maybe a little bit. Sorry, take down the very cool modern art.
That was the modern art.
It's like, what is that supposed to be?
This is part of our, it's all a prop. Bringing it. But thoughts about, making him known. What do you think that might include in the life of a local church?
Well, you're asking about the church itself or individually?
Both. Yeah, the church and individually, I guess. The whole enchilada, as it were. We're thinking broadly here.
Being clear about what you believe,
Yes.
for sure. I mean, it's like did you say last week something about like your theology is, living it out versus, you can just be all over the place.
Yes.
Having,
Yes.
kind of centered and anchored
Right.
in the word of God first.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So we need a clear understanding of kind of who God is to make him known.
Yeah.
Yeah, of who God is. So that's why we started last week with knowing God. You can't really share much about him if you don't really know him. You would be kind of pointless to kind of spread a faith you're not super aware of. So yeah, that's a good place to start. I like that. Start with the basic knowledge that we actually have to share, right? Other thoughts?
I think not being silent about your faith.
Yeah,
I was feeling kind of convicted recently because if you go on my Facebook, like you see pictures of my family
yep,
or pretty places that I've been.
yeah,
But I do have a friend who does a really good job of always sharing like, this is the time of our church service, or this is a
Yeah.
verse that I liked, or this was a good article. And I think if someone didn't know me and went to my Facebook, they would have no idea that I was a Christian.
right, right. Yeah, not being silent, and there's so many ways to do that and share that, think about that. Yeah, social media is always a tricky one,
Right,
'Cause there's-
because anyone can see, and
right?
we have a lot of friends that over the years go different ways.
Yes.
and-
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's that very public, and I very much with my social media, I'm just like, it's just there for pictures and family. I don't want to get into any debates and discussions with people, but Jamie, my wife she will post things about some of the ministry work she's doing, and yeah, she has friends that are atheists or very smart who are kind of like, that's stupid, or and she'll get into all these interesting dialogues, and I'm like, ooh, there's something to be said for using that social media for some, spark some interesting conversations and discussions out there, because it is a window into a much broader conversation with people that may not be Christians. If your sphere of influence is pretty small, like, yeah, you're definitely broadening it by putting it out there. It's not for the faint of heart. Once you post things that social media, any number of interest,
yeah.
you have some very.
Yeah, I don't
interesting-
think I wanna have debates all the time, but I
Right.
think that maybe there should be like some hint
Yeah.
about like that.
Yeah. I think the same way too. I'm kind of like, and my wife does it very naturally, so it doesn't sound like she's preaching at people at all too. She just kind of shares stories, and you're like, people are like,
This is what I'm doing.
this is what I'm doing today, and I'm like, that's cool. From Laundry Love or some of the work that she's doing.
But there's another way to take that same thing and
Yeah.
kind of invert it. When we get to know somebody, maybe a coworker or a neighbor
Yeah.
or something else. And we're just talking and trying to make the talk a layer, at least maybe 2 layers, lower than, or deeper than just
Surface.
small talk
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And like, if we hear that they're going through something, one thing that I like to do, it leads to where I hope it leads.
Yeah.
Most of the time, not all the time. And that is, how do you deal with that? Ask the person, how do you
Yeah.
deal with that?
Yeah.
How are you dealing with that?
Yeah.
The cool thing about that is, unless they're a real jerk, they'll eventually ask you how you deal with
Yeah.
some of the things. So
Yeah.
it doesn't, then it's a conversation, and it doesn't have to be, preaching at somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's usually
sometimes
how I do
the
things.
thing the thing that I'm tempted to do,
Yeah.
and it's still tempted, I can't believe how stupid I am. So I just can't seem to stop this. When somebody tells me about something,
Yeah.
I will tell a story that I'm not necessarily trying to one up, but
Yeah.
I think the best way to answer that is to, get in there, and sometimes just that other question of like, how do you deal with this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, and you can see where that would lead if they ask us, where we hope.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe if we're honest, we wouldn't like the answer sometimes, but
Yeah.
at least it's.
But you're having a conversation.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite books on evangelism is called Questioning Evangelism by Randy Newman, and he's I can't remember what he's in Young Life or Varsity or something, but he's Jewish, comes from a Jewish background. He's like, the rabbis, whenever you ask him anything, they always let me ask you a question, and so it's this very like
That was a good accent.
yeah. Not even trying, so it may just be the nasaliness of my. It's a little stuffy there, but anyways, but asking a good question there. So I do think, as I've grown and matured, boy, I could talk with the best of them, but like actually just asking good questions is often one of the best ways to be able to get. But obviously, if you put stuff out there on social media, then you can start the conversation that way too. So good questions are good ways to make him known, their personal lives.
I think sometimes you also have to do things that are not talking.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like,
yeah,
what you just say, like, if you give someone a cup of cold water.
yeah.
You're doing it, so it's like, sometimes just being a servant.
Yeah.
to others, serving,
Yep.
right, I mean, in his name.
Yeah. Yeah, serving, compassion can be a huge part of Jesus' ministry, where he often led with the healing first and then go sin no more kind of thing. And so I think that's very much a big part of our witness and testimony, is to be able to kind of build some credibility with people by, serving and people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care is the old, I think, the old classic line on that. So yeah, very helpful. Start there and or fairly responsive, receptive to that kind of stuff. There's other thoughts here.
Oh, and, Jesus says they will know you by your love. I mean, if we
Yeah,
have a type of community that loves each other and loves the neighbors, the people
Yeah.
here. So that's what he said.
yeah, yeah, that was in our sermon text today, you know, loving God, loving neighbor, like that whole thing creates a lot of the preconditions for like people to go, oh, these people aren't psychopaths, you know, they're not jerks, they're not judgmental, they're not legalistic or moralistic or super, you know, judgmental or condemning. Community does give you an opportunity for people to kind of, yeah, let their guard down a little. There's some safety there and some. It's there for sure. Yeah, those are good. Those are good. My big goal for this whole session is to kind of help broaden your eyes on what I think what it means to make God known. I think sometimes this part is where people are the most freaked out about generally. Like people are kind of like, yeah, be a biblical family. Sounds so warm and cozy, and and knowing God first, your church. We gotta do that kind of stuff. The making him known part of the thing where people are like, this is what we pay missionaries to do, and pastors and evangelists and everybody else. And so I think this is where for church people, this is where we get a little work. We're like, realize I have a day job. I don't have a lot of time to do that. So the big point here I want to make with this is just to help maybe broaden some of the categories you might have for what this could look like. So a couple of things I want to mention, which we've used before, maybe 3 categories just to help you start to think personally in your own personal lives, making Jesus known, maybe 3 avenues that might help give you a little window into what we're doing here. And the first one is just location, right? Where has God placed you providentially in the world? What neighbors happen to be around you? Who are the people that intersect with you in your kind of everyday life just because of the neighborhood you're in, the place you're in? Particularly if you've been around for a while, like you start to know, you start to hear the neighbors, the people, and the rhythms that are going on there. So I know it's been a big part of our ministry. I know whichever house we've been at is like, how do we open our house up to the neighbors, have pancake breakfast, or do a lunch party, or do those kind of things that are just there to kind of like, hey, these are the people that are in geographic proximity to me. The second one I would mention is that of vocation, right? Where we work. And it could be broader than where we work. I mean, vocation doesn't be something you're paid to do, but the kind of things that God has called us to put a lot of our efforts into. So it could be a job, could be another calling or passion where we're putting a lot of our time, effort, and focus. But a lot of us have jobs that, we're spending huge amounts of our time in. So starting to think about what that might look like intentionally to step into those kind of spaces and have a broader category. And we're going to do a workshop in May actually on vocational ministry and what it could look like, opportunities for people to serve. And so I'm really excited about that. We've been working on that for a while to try and give people a little broader categories. I think we're think of faith and work. They sometimes just think, I need to share my faith with my coworkers, or I need to like make lots of money and give it to the church or something. Like people have pretty small kind of ideas about what does it actually look like to be a faithful coworker, to love the people God's put you in place, serve people well, just have a broader sense of the good work that you're doing in the careers in which God's put you, and the opportunities to really be a light for Christ in a lot of different ways. So that workshop will hopefully expand that. Sometimes in this class, I'll go through 10 or so different ways, your faith can work out and work. I don't think I'm going to do that today, just in terms of timing and stuff. But that's another helpful place to be at. And then lastly here, recreation, where we rest or where we play, can be a really fun thing too. The different activities you are in, the different groups of people you hang out with, friends. Obviously can all be networks for making him known here. Any thoughts on these three areas here, or any opportunities maybe you've had in some of these categories, just opportunities to share your faith and be a light in some of these categories, or maybe some of the challenges you've had, even thinking some of those things through, being engaged in any of these.
A quick testimony
Yeah,
about this week.
yeah,
My son was in a couple of weeks ago from Nashville. And
Yeah.
I try to line him up with Tim Keller sermons to listen up. Sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't. He didn't on the way last time. This time I just sent him 3 texts. Listen to Keller.
here's the link. Here you go.
And he did, and it was on vocation. And I'm
Oh,
trying to
that's-
say this to plug your class.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah.
know you're gonna be saying a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
But one of the things that, so Jasper finally listened to that. And he was so convicted that he was just working for money and prestige and all these different sorts of things. And Keller just says, what a lot of Christians, so it's kind of get this is, it's about serving people. We find our gifts and we find something that is gonna bring them into where God wants them to go, blah, blah, blah. Anyway,
Yeah,
my wife runs an incubator film program, and Jasper's really good at technological stuff. And he just was convicted to come back right away. He came back and did a whole week of training with
Yeah.
these people because they haven't been able to find anybody to train them. And he just says, I have approached this completely wrong.
yeah,
I got it upside down and I want to change. One of the young men that he was working with the most I'm going on and on, but I mean, it's like just like kind of down on himself. Went to a party like he usually would last night and was so convicted by the atmosphere and just and he said he called my wife this morning and said, I can't believe how grateful I am to God that he's showing me what things are really about. Anyway, just so changing our attitude toward work really can make him known.
yeah.
Because it really impacted this other young man's life. So this is the last couple of days.
Yeah, that's huge. And that's where, it's in the everyday, it's the mundane, right? That's where it's happening. And, Jesus is the Lord of our little moments, Sometimes you just think of the big moments, those dramatic mountaintop moments. But yeah, the little everyday, how are we using our gifts to serve God and, serve the people around, love God, love the people around us well, and meet the needs in the world, whether they're big needs or little needs, simple needs, all those, if they're done, out of love, so it's whatever you do, do it all in the glory of God, that mindset, that mentality, whether you're, Martin Luther King Jr. is famously, give you a street sweeper, like sweep that street to the glory of God, do it with joy and do it with excellence, and do it in recognition of who you're serving and you're loving, and it's a huge test. In fact, in some ways, the more mundane it is, the more of a testimony it is to God when you do it with joy.
Brother Lawrence.
Yeah, there you go. I think of always the monks, I think it's Brother Lawrence, who just wash dishes. I always thought that was I've tried to emulate that a little bit. I'm not a big dishwasher guy, but I'm just like, I could just roll up my sleeves, wash some dishes, the old school way. Now that's the dishwasher. I would sit there and just pray, sing some songs, watch the tells you how seldom I do dishes. When I do, I'm like, it's gonna be a spiritual test. Wash dishes to the glory of
And
God.
the soaps have such encouraging names like Joy.
I do, it's so dawn, I know it's
Cascade.
It's all providential. Oh, it's a convergence, right? Yeah, other maybe testimonies where areas where you've seen God at work, and at work in some of these areas. Or challenges maybe as you think about stepping into some of these
I think a big thing is just like not shying away from like the truth of like say Easter rolls around and it's like, oh yeah, what are you guys doing over the weekend?
areas.
Well, like I could say, probably gonna sleep in on, Saturday, and then, like gonna watch the game, whatever the game is. Like,
Yeah.
like, yeah, there's always a game.
Yeah.
And you could also say,
Yeah.
oh, I'm gonna go to Easter service and
Yeah.
like, just say that part of your life.
Yeah.
Don't hide it under a bushel basket.
Yeah. Yeah, those elements, and I think that's the challenge, is just to keep that spiritual, the culture is very strongly like sacred and secular divide, and so, we live in this. When you're in your church, do your church thing, and then when you're at work, do your work thing, and so, yeah, it's very kind of like, what, you go to church, like, why would you do that? Why would you get out of bed and get yourself to church? That's like a prime day to sleep in and catch up on all the shows you missed out on binging, or go shopping. Like Sunday is like the ultimate miscellaneous day in our culture right now. It's like the utility day. You can do anything. And so all the restaurants are full for brunch in East Town on Sunday because everybody's sleeping in and you're doing their thing. So even just mentioning, not in a weirdly, creepy way, but just it's just part of who I am, what I do. I think that's, it's harder in our culture because people are used to that. Like, oh, weird.
One of the engineers that used to report to me, like, randomly started telling me about like how he started going to church.
Yeah.
And he was like kind of like a new Christian.
Yeah.
You know, you're a Christian.
See, that's where I'm going with this.
Intriguing.
Because he started telling me like, oh yeah, and like I'm like, oh yeah, I go to church, and but like I'm like, so he's the one that's like going on and on, like
Right.
he just found like a brand new hobby that he's super
Yeah.
excited to tell me about. He's like, hey, all these people are like really cool, everyone's really nice, I'm learning all this stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like the old one. I'm like, I could take something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember those days when I was that excited.
Give it time. No,
Yeah.
the good old days.
Yeah, and that's so sweet, like when you are new and you're passionate about, so you just talk about the things that you're passionate about. Yeah, but it's cool in a work environment like that, you just know there are a few other people, there are other people in this same boat that I'm in. And you don't always even know, just in the normal everyday conversations.
I feel like, it seems like scary to do, like actually say the name of Jesus. And,
Yeah.
like talk to people.
Yeah.
But I think like starting, for me, I feel like led to start with just prayer.
Yeah, yeah.
Like praying for my coworkers, praying
Yeah.
like for opportunities,
Yeah.
like in small, like hopefully small ways first, like.
Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah.
I feel like it's a muscle that you practice. Like my mom is very inspirational to me. She mentions Jesus casually to like
Yeah.
almost everyone she meets.
Yeah,
And it's not weird. Like when
Right.
she says, I don't know how she does it,
Right.
but like it's,
Right.
and it's just something she's done for so long that like, it's a muscle. that
it's
she's
kind of built in, yeah.
practiced. Yeah.
Yeah.
So prayer, I think praying first, because prayer is super powerful. Like you can pray
Yeah.
for your coworkers and pray for just that they would like be hungry for the Lord, even if they don't even know what that means. And that the Lord would show you ways to start.
Yeah.
I think he wants to help you with
Yeah.
that, help us with that. So
I'm always surprised at how people that aren't even Christians are totally happy with being prayed for. Like, I mean, they're like, oh, it's nice. I'm glad you believe that stuff. You might know, like, can't hurt, right? That is just one of those, it's just the easy way to kind of, just right. It's a little indicator. I care about you, And I think
and I
people.
just mean praying like at home with that, they're
Oh,
not anywhere near you,
mention it
like
to that,
starting
just
praying in your
starting
own.
with prayer privately. That's a great, there's two sides to that, both public side to that. And
Yeah.
I know that's something with even our foster daughters, and they've come into our house, we're kind of like, just start, hey, can I pray for you about stuff? And they're just like, oh yeah, it's got a lot that I'm carrying. And so that can be a very easy kind of gentle place to kind of start.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Has Redemption ever had, you said you're gonna do a vocation class or
Yeah.
something, have you ever done anything like evangelism training? And it doesn't sound as geeky as I, or at least what I was thinking, like,
Right.
do people know, how many of us know what some of the main questions
Right.
that non-Christians have today
Right.
about Jesus, and what we could say about Jesus that would,
Yeah.
maybe start those type of
Yeah.
discussions, or would be encouraging him, because, things change
Yep.
from
Yeah,
For, since C.S. Lewis wrote Mere Christianity, the questions aren't the same, or do we know how to talk about sin?
right,
In a way that just doesn't sound so off-putting and so, like, we're so embarrassed,
yeah.
but we know we have to talk about it some way, like, I'm just wondering if we've ever had,
Yeah.
has the church ever had that sort of a?
Yeah, that's great. So two things we've done recently, like last year we did not a well-attended class, we did a missional living class. Which is just how do you live out, essentially on this whole idea of making him known. I don't know how many people were there. I would say it was like 3 or 4 people. Like for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because we'd offered a bunch of other classes, but it was not well attended. But it was very much an attempt to give people a sense of like, go through some of these different categories, give people testimonies. They read a practical book. I can't remember the name of it now, on just sharing your faith in this, day and age. And so, but yeah, so it's something we want to have in our kind of curriculum wheelhouse to just be helping people, training people. About a year before that, we did a book called Questioning Christianity by Rebecca McLaughlin. I don't know if you guys have heard of that book, phenomenal book, but she just kind of goes through some of the top 10 objections people that aren't Christians have and just answered those. And so we did that. That was during COVID. We did it over Zoom and we had, I don't know, 20 people just going through that class, like listening through, and that's just some of the best. Like Rebecca McLaughlin works for some group that does just, a lot of that kind of resourcing work. But she interviewed like all the top, she's like a guy from Cambridge University. She, interviewed all these top tier intellectuals or all around the world to answer the biggest questions that secular people have. And so it's really good. It's kind of an update. Tim Keller did a book, The Reason for God, about 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. She kind of did it. It's almost like an update on it with some even more modern questions. And so we did do a class on that. So that'd be one that'd be really fun to circle back around to again. That one's more intellectual in terms of the intellectual objections people have. And so helping people walk through that.
So maybe a sermon series or something like that.
Yeah, we are actually talking about that. Our next series, we're like, should we do a missional living series or should we do 7 deadly sins? And so the 7 deadly sins actually got voted on. So the missional living class got next year, but it'll come back around, I'm sure. Missional living sermon series. So, but I think that's something that people do need a little bit more vision for, and as they're thinking about, both at an intellectual level and at a practical, like just serving level. And there are lots of different ways to think about it. And so sometimes we have a very narrow kind of conception. So let me see here what else I've got, because I think I've got a few other things that are in here. So from a church perspective, like from a personal perspective, we're really trying to help people equip you guys to be kind of on mission in where you live, where you work, where you play, all that kind of stuff. And then at a church level, we're doing a couple different things to kind of, as a church, to kind of be pushing ministries. So we have like city ministries, church planning, global ministries, and some of those are more, I think, focused, more intentional kind of work that we're doing. City ministries has been opportunities to reach out to our city here, particularly our neighborhood, work with local nonprofits to be able to serve and share well. And so, Laundry Love is one of the initiatives that we're doing here in terms of just opening up our church to people from any different backgrounds, faith traditions, and just have really interesting conversations. So that has continued to be interesting. Just last week, some guy came, single parent dad. I think my wife was sharing this maybe last week, but he came to the door. Was like, "Is there really free laundry here? Because that sounds too good to be true." And he just kind of came over on a reconnaissance mission. And he was like, "So you say I can like bring my laundry and my kids over here and do laundry?" James like, "Yes." All right, let me go get my laundry and bring it over here. Bring the kids over, and then they were over here talking. And Sam, one of our youngest, was hanging out playing with their kid, and so just some beautiful opportunities here to kind of say, hey, there are people in our community definitely have a different kind of socioeconomic, background that we can help out with and do some ministry work with too. We've worked with a lot of other organizations in the community. We worked with Grace's Table, which is a ministry to single moms, worked with Sacred Beginnings, ministry to prostitutes in the community. We've worked with different elementary schools, public schools in the area to try to support and encourage various times. I know the old Easttown community was very involved with Congress Elementary for many years. I'm trying to think, Bethany Christian Services through adoption and foster care has been a big part of that. So lots of different ways we're trying to love and serve kind of the city well. Church planning has been a big wing of that. And so the TCT network that we're a part of, Treasure in Christ, together, Bethlehem Baptist part, we're part of, which does church plant here in the state and all around the world too. And same with Acts 29 too. So lots of church planting material there, trying to get the gospel out both here and not just get the gospel, but a whole full-on church that's able to really live out the gospel, raise people up in the gospel and send them out. So lots of cool stuff happening there. Yeah, and then I was gonna circle back around too. Any questions on, I guess, some of these? Or you jump into that other one there too. Questions on city ministries or church planting, global ministries? These are some of our more outwardly focused ministry things that we are doing.
Are you currently trying to plant a church from Redemption?
We're working on partnering with another church planner right now. So we're trying to identify, I'm talking to two different people right now. Each year we try to pick one church planner to work alongside. And some of them, we know really well, because they're, somebody who's come alongside us. Other people are expedite churches in like other countries or something. So I'm talking to a guy who's wanted to plant a church in Flint right now. Called Christ Our Hope, which is pretty cool. African-American dude heading into kind of a rough part of Flint to do some ministry there. And so that sounds super cool. And I'm hoping to get him to come in a couple of weeks and share a little bit of that. And then I just talked to another couple that are going to Nepal actually to start planting house churches in Nepal. And he's another church planter guy. He's trying to get connected with X and stuff. So we're trying to build a partnership for this year. The last 2 years we've had guys come from Union Church over in Brighton, Michigan, in the Livingston County area. And so Ethan Ezekiel and Kyle Rodriguez playing over there. So every year we try to have a different guy, either from the States or from globally. And so we're trying to identify that. And so Church Planter Sunday is coming up in a couple of weeks. And so hopefully we'll have that all ironed out. So definitely something every year we're trying to work on. We may be a little behind this year on that, but we will for sure get that done and be introducing a new face that's doing church planting work. And we really want to raise somebody up from within Redemption City too to send out at some point. That would be really exciting to bring somebody all the way through kind of the seminary work and the ministry, who's here and part of the work. So yeah. So does that answer your question?
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, other questions? Yeah, the global ministries front is another one where we're trying to see more work happening overseas. And so we're having a couple coming in who are going to be over the Middle East that are going to share a little bit next week about what God's doing in the ministry. They're members here, Justin and Carly. So they're going to be sharing a little bit about the work that's called M2 Medical Missions in the Middle East. And so we're trying to help profile, raise awareness about people that do work around different capacities as well. We've got folks, the Liddells that are down in Peru. They're doing really cool stuff with an orphanage down in the jungle in Peru. And so trying to, with Ken who's a lifetime missionary, and also Zach Harris, both works in missions, trying to do more global work with partnerships. Hoping this whole church planting partnership with Nepal works. So that'd be super cool to have church planting going on out in that part of the world too. So those are some of the things going on just in terms of ways we're trying to move kind of outwards here and serve not just our city, but ultimately the country and ultimately to the nations there too. And so the city ministries is one where we're definitely, city and global are relatively new. Not new, but they've just, I should say they've gone through ebbs and flows, like depending on who's here. Like if we have some really cool connected city people who are like social work background, I really just want to be in that whole city mindset. We've had some really exciting things going on and then kind of ebbs and flows. Global ministries, again, depending on the global partnerships we have.
How many global partnerships? How many?
I think we only have two like formal global partnerships right now. So that's something
We're supporting.
we're supporting them financially right now. Yeah. So we have Karam Coach, who's in Antalya, Turkey. He's a church planner and missionary and doing theological education. We've been supporting him for about 5 years now. He's kind of in both of those global and church planting niche. And then there's another family we set up, the Liddells are in Peru. Then we do support a couple who's in Bogota, Colombia with Crew. And so that is, I'm forgetting, the names, but they're relatively just in the last year, I think we added them in there. So yeah, we have a lot of crew folks around the world. Oh, Campus Crusade for Christ.
Oh.
Yeah. Crew, it's like a college ministry at college campuses, so.
So
Yeah.
upstairs you have a map, there's
Yes.
a map, and those little red pins are the ones you're talking
Right,
about.
yeah. So it should be the ones, and we're trying to improve that whole, that whole visual and add more people to that as we're doing it. So like Dustin and Carly are coming next week. I don't think we can put them on the map because the country they're going to, but people that are, coming out of our church that we're able to help and support. It's something we're trying to grow and be more globally minded and not just, the needs in the US have been a big, like for Exeter, I focus a lot on like big cities in the US are just unchurched and like, the needs here, but we're also recognizing there's huge global needs as well. The church is growing rapidly. The personal, so be a part, we could do both.
There are churches from other countries that are sending missionaries here.
Back to us, yeah. So, yeah, it was so cool talking to the guy from Nepal and like just what they were talking about, the work that's happening, and how exciting church growth is there. I'm just, it's so exciting. So, yeah, in some ways, this is like a really easy context in one sense, but also very hard context in terms of like, conversion growth, like. Because so many people are either churched or not churched, and so the two don't hang out a lot together. So it is an interesting space to do evangelism because so many people have been there, done that, bought the T-shirt kind of thing, and don't want to do it. So, Ken was just talking about coming back from Turkey. He's like, I just try to talk with people on the street. It's like I'll go for a prayer walk, and nobody wants to have anything to do with like a very direct spiritual conversation. People are very like. Been burned by a lot of the street evangelism, and so takes a little bit more relational, usually connection there. We get from people's defenses because they just feel like they're getting spammed or telemarketed to, or so people's defenses are. So a couple things here. I will leave that to. So the other thing I wanted to mention briefly here. Is just this piece on evangelism styles. So I thought this gave, did I have one of these open? See if I have one of these divine designs around here. I thought this gave some interesting pieces. Actually, I don't even have.
No, I got mine.
Yeah, somebody give us maybe a little overview. If you did do the divine design work, I thought I'd spend a little time. Actually, why don't you just give us a little.
No, there you go.
I was gonna say, did you have a particular one that was,
You can share mine.
yeah, so, one of the ways we're trying to help people think about making God known here is through, these 6 evangelistic styles. So, how many of you guys had the confrontive evangelism style? Anyone? Wow, that's always probably the least popular at this point here. Popular a few generations ago. Confrontive evangelism style, not as great in this context. That kind of direct thing is like, you're sure to get a door slammed in your face. Things like in this cultural context. How about the intellectual style? Anybody on the intellectual style? Ooh, yes, I love the intellectual style. Yeah, I did a lot of like pub theology for a while. We did local pub. We would talk through all the big intellectual issues and have big, long-ranging conversations at Harmony Brewing Company for many years. Super cool thing that we did to kind of just connect with people in the community and talk with them about their faith. And how about what's the next one on here?
Testimonial.
Ooh, testimony. Anybody got testimonial? On there. Testimonial people, yeah. My wife is a testimonial person. She has kind of a crazy testimony. I think some of us here have got the boring kind of testimony. It's not quite as exciting, but yeah, my wife's definitely got a more wild one. So she loves to share and kind of leads with that story. And that can be a very powerful thing. How about interpersonal? Anybody interpersonal? Yeah, I definitely had some interpersonal in there. I love hanging out with people and chatting and that relationships another work that's just relational evangelism popularized by like Young Life and a lot of, organizations just leading out of like that, building relationships. A lot of campus ministries, campus crusade, all the InterVarsity, a lot of those use more of a interpersonal kind of style to start to build the relationships for Christ. And then what was the last one on here? It was two more invitationals. Anybody on invitational? Invitationals. Just invite people to things. We've had in the season of our church, we've had, I think, 2 or 3 people that have this gift like remarkably. And every week they just bring a new person. Like they're just like one of those kind of people that like they're just always hanging out with new people. And wherever they go, there's like natural networkers. And so they just are always building relationships, always bring people along. And those people, like they're the most friendly people you'll ever know, most extroverted people you'll ever know. And they're just always hanging out, building relationships and connecting people. And so I've loved having people like that in our church because I am not quite that extroverted. And so to be able to build those, you're sitting, they're the ones that are sitting in a coffee shop and they're like, somehow managed to meet everyone that's sitting there while they're on their laptops, hard at work, trying to ignore everyone else. I'm like, how did you do that? Slip through everyone's guard. How about a serving style? Anybody have the serving style? Get a couple there, couple on serving there too. So hopefully those give you a couple of different venues. I think some people just think like evangelism is not my gift, and so I'm not going to be involved with this thing. I hope this gives you guys a little bit broader of a spectrum of maybe some ways to share. Was any of this new to you guys, or interesting, or something you're interested in maybe pursuing a little bit further? Give you some new ways to think about it.
Yeah, it was new to me.
Yeah.
I've never seen it broken down. I thought that was really helpful.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, this is something that I saw, and I was like, oh, I didn't know this thing,
Yeah.
sort of thing even existed. And so this was kind of like our missional living class. I was talking with David earlier, like this is kind of to give people some different categories. A lot of people just think my personality is not, people think confrontive, like,
Yeah.
if I'm doing evangelism, I need to be able to cold call people on the phone. I need to be able to talk to people on the streets.
Yeah.
That's funny. Nobody here had that
Yeah.
one. So
Yeah.
probably I'll be like, nope, that's not.
There
for
was
me.
a funny story. There was a guy, and I was listening to something yesterday, who literally would call through the phone book. A generation ago, they literally would cold call people through the phone book and like saw hundreds of people come to faith. And this was like a generation ago. So this is not like
Wow.
now, but like back before they were like, you could screen your calls. And this was back, I don't know, in the 60s or 70s, but he would literally just go through a phone book and was a legend in his own time.
Wow.
I'm like, that sounds absolutely horrible. I can't even imagine, but like,
Totally wasn't the confrontive style.
yeah, but he was just totally like happy to just talk with people, and he was playing the odds. He's
I'm
like,
surprised you got anybody to listen to him.
he did,
Listen to a real phony.
right. There you go, there you go.
Sorry about that.
Like in youth group, like I feel like there were a lot of times where we had, like, they wanted us to just go to the mall.
Oh,
like,
yes, yes,
bring
yes,
people, but like,
yeah,
it was an interesting time, but
yeah.
That's right.
it's so uncomfortable. at
That
first.
freaked me out.
Yeah.
At Liberty, we had Friday night, it was like soul winning nights or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
We would all go out on the town in Lynchburg, Virginia, which is terrible because there's like thousands of students, and like every night they're like released on a town. These people who are like for the 100th time, the 1000th time, more Liberty students out here to share the gospel with us. And so we were just give me $5, I'll get some cigarettes, Well, I'll say whatever you want me to say. Just like, why are we doing this? But it was actually a requirement, I remember, for our evangelism class. We had to go out. We had to go out on Friday night. I was like, wow, the worst evangelism. I'm like, this is,
But people do want, like, if you say, do you want prayer? Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people do say
Yeah,
yes. So
yeah.
I will say, like, it's uncomfortable, but like,
yeah.
like, I'm not saying I'm gonna go
Yeah.
do that today, but people do say yes to prayer. It's interesting.
Yeah. Part of me loves that courage that's involved with that, and just the willingness. Like, there is always that one person who's just like, you just happen to meet them in the moment, and they're just like, I do need prayer, and you can make that connection in the moment.
That's true. I mean, so Kath and I, when we were in college, we would go to a water tower place, not the mall, but there's
Yeah.
like across the way in Chicago.
Yeah.
And there's a college, a group of us that
Yeah.
like go and just street evangelize.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, I look back, I'm like,
Yeah.
what happened? They go.
Yeah.
What's that?
I couldn't tell if somebody was saying, yeah, in my youth, youthful days as a Christian, there was a phrase going around, divine appointments. You guys
Yeah.
heard about that?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Like we were kind of told to look for those divine
Yeah.
appointments, to keep our eyes open and, or just be ready, because if they didn't send us out with tracts to the grocery store or anything like that, but they really did say, be sensitive to the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Because this flat tire, there's something else,
Yeah.
might be I thought that was pretty cool. It was,
Yeah.
anyway, different type of pressure, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that, yeah. Yeah, you trust that God has people in moments where they need to hear and you just have to be there. So I think you should always be probably on alert for those divine appointments that God's gonna put into our lives, and it's a wonderful opportunity. That's why, but even not being introverted and hating the idea of like doing, street witnessing stuff, like it is amazing how many people God will even just randomly bring into your life just in the course of a week or a month or something, of just random, in the midst of public gas, shopping, the normal. I feel like there's less and less of that as like everything gets more technologized. There's less interpersonal relationships in general, but just be attentive.
There was some guy downtown Grand Rapids, I know, like that in the corner that's like shouting out.
Oh, yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I'm talking about, that seems like the
Yeah.
same guy.
Yeah, I've
You know what I'm
seen him
talking
at Fuller and Fulton. So he's got,
Yeah.
does he have like a little thing he stands
Yes,
on? And yeah,
yes.
he's got a little sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm always like.
Is he more street evangelism or is he more end does not?
No. I don't, well, I'm not sure. He's just a megaphone or something, just like shouting. I'm like,
Yeah, it's such an interesting, to me, it always feels like such a strange. You're in a totally different world here.
Mhm.
Yeah. The cozy interpersonal relational. That I'm all about.
Coffee.
Yeah.
I actually had good talks with people who are kind of standing on the edges, kind of shaking their head, and you
Yeah.
start talking,
Yeah.
but then it actually turned into a good talk a couple
Yeah,
times.
yeah,
Because you could agree with their objections to the guy that was.
right, yeah,
You're
yeah,
supposed to agree with him, you're.
yeah.
probably more-
Yeah. So, I'm like the ones, like, I just feel like, the work that's been most successful is where you do invite people in where they're prepared. So I feel like people's, they've been so marketed to, people's defenses are up against cold calling or marketing or, on the spot. So if you could give people some space, one of the things we were gonna do this year, and it just didn't come together, was a thing called Alpha. Haven't you guys been through Alpha? So Alpha is like a program where you invite people that aren't Christians to come and just have dinner. And then there's a speaker who will come on and just share kind of basics about the faith. And then you have a conversation about it. And so the nice thing, it's a video, so you can disagree with the speaker or not, like you can have a, conversation, but it's really just creating a safe space. I think they have a meal is involved with it. We were gonna try and do it this year, but you're trying to invite people into a space where they can have spiritual conversations. And I think that's been a little bit more effective just because the culture we're in, people aren't as comfortable, like it's like religion and politics are two conversations you avoid, in polite conversations. So if you could create spaces to curate those conversations, that can be really good. The other thing we did for years was pub theology, where we'd invite people to come and you're meeting at the pub, and so you're having a pint, and people are a little less, a little less inhibitions around that whole, you can have those kind of conversations, and that was really a lot of fun. Hoping to bring that back again soon, because it was just, clearly when you're in a church or even in somebody's home, it's different than when you're out in a kind of a public house and you're just kind of hanging out. It's a big boisterous atmosphere. People could just feel like you're on neutral territory and have some conversations. I just miss a lot of those great conversations, and those would always keep me on my toes, because people, different religions and backgrounds, atheists and agnostics. Lots of conversations. So I miss that. I'm in too much of a pastoral bubble, so I need to get out of my pastoral bubble a little more and have some of those conversations. So I'm like, oh, they're not asking the questions I thought they were asking. Other thoughts on the evangelistic styles here? Right, moving right along here. Oh, I had discussion questions. But we already kind of talked about that. So I think look at that. I have a
Is it video?
Well, I don't know if I was trying to think if I have enough time to share a video here or not, but yeah, I think I'm getting near the end of my content. I had one video at the end here. I was going to share a little story from one of our church planner guys over in Turkey and all. But yeah, man, I'm like ahead of schedule. All right, we're doing all right.
Is that a bad thing?
That's a good thing. I was gonna say, I should not complain. I was like, there's no way we're gonna get to the video at the end of this thing, but this is good. I think I took it a little thinner. Usually I had like a couple pages on each handouts on all the different areas. This time I was like, I'm just gonna talk through it. So you guys got the Clip Notes version. And so we are doing, I actually misspoke with the vocation. They were doing a workshop, just a one morning workshop for the vocation thing. We'll see if we do missionalism in class or sermon series. But each of these things we're trying to flesh out a little bit more, give you guys a little more info on. But I'll show you this last little vision just to give you one of the guys we've been supporting, particularly our church. If you meet like Ken and Rhonda, spent 34 years in Turkey. So we've got some close connections with Turkey. A lot of people have done mission trips in Turkey. And so it's really kind of cool connecting with Kerem, who's a pastor in Turkey who got saved, and he's a Turkish national. And not only is he a pastor there, but he's he planted a church, and he's been training church planners and equipping them. So I had a quick video to share here. Let me see if I've got volume on. That's going to be the one thing I think I'm going to want to plug this into the speakers if you're going to like it. We're way up there. We're cranked. That's great. What do we?
We are not even minority. We are dust. We are nobody in Turkey. As soon as that they learn that you're a Christian, it puts you in a hard situation. One thing that we know that's that Christians will be suffered if they want to come to church, if they want to read the Bible. You are going to suffer in this land. We are going to follow the steps of Paul after he left. That's the beauty of the gospel. It's not about me. It's about him. It's about Christ. He's looking, man is like me, just nobody, just a dust. And Lord, take it. And I said, I'm going to use you for my glory. Merhaba, benim adım Kerem Koç, Antalya Protestan Kilisesi'nin pastoruyum. Evliyim, 2 çocuğum var, eşimin adı Buse, 2 oğlum var, Josiah ve David Kuzey. Burada Antalya'da pastorluk yapmaktayım. There are about 80 millions of people in Turkey and only 4,000 Christians. And so that makes the Turkey as the largest unreached nation per capita. And most people in Turkey, this is no joke, like literally, they would think that they cannot grow up and says that, you know what, I decide to be Buddhist, I decide to be atheist, I decide to be Christian. They don't know they have that right, actually, because of the mindset of people are set so much that the Turkness are related with the Islam, that's our identity. We knew that we wanted to start a church. Antalya is so big, there's only one church. I thought that there need to be many, many more churches. So we basically started our church plant with that heart. 5 years ago, we started to get together. The goal when we started to get together, started to open an art gallery so that we could invite people to our art gallery and then share the gospel with them and use the space in the Sundays for the worship. But first 2 Sundays, there was like enough people were coming. So we thought, let's skip the art gallery and just preach the gospel, you know? And it worked. So that really blessed us, you know? When you build not on people and their skills and their ideas and their plans, but built on Christ, and everybody looks at him, the church flourishes. And we're seeing that people come to Christ. They're saying that they have been saved by the grace alone, and that you see in their eyes that this is their life now. They wanted to change. They wanted to live faithfully. They wanted to serve to Christ. They wanted to preach the gospel. It's amazing. Well, what would be more bigger blessing to us than seeing those people's lives changing? I'm really excited about X299 has the same passion that we have. And this is why we become the X299 church, and so that we can reach leaders and pastors and young people around the Turkey and teach them, educate them, counsel them, help them out, support them, and send them to the cities where there's no church existing. İman yoluyla lütufla kurtuldunuz. Bu sizin başarınız değil, Tanrı'nın armağanıdır. Kimsenin övünmemesi için iyi işlerin ödülü değildir. Amen.
You guys, a little snapshot of some of the global work. I got to spend about 10 days in Antalya about 2 years ago. 3 years ago. Beautiful city on the Mediterranean. Get to see a lot of the history there and Paul's journeys, and really cool, but very crazy. I woke up first morning. Whatever the time is, the call to prayer there. You know, they didn't have any air conditioning, so the windows were all open. All of a sudden, this blaring, bells were ringing or whatever. I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta get up and pray here. It's 5 a.m. or whatever it is. Yeah, very crazy to be in a country like Turkey doing that. But yeah, there's some cool ministry happening there, and we're hoping to see many more churches planted in that country. You said 80 million people, 4,000 Christians. Yep. Which is crazy to think about there. Starting again. Okay, so that which brings us to the finish line of this class, this membership class here, which is to complete the membership application and then set up a member interview by Sunday, 23rd, which is our membership Sunday, when we're going to be presenting all of you who want to continue this process, those of you who should choose to complete this task. We'll be praying for you guys on that date. So it leaves about, what's today, the 19th, about a month to try to schedule a meeting either with me or with one of the other elders. Now I was going to try and grab some of the elders to stick around and introduce you guys, because you might not know who they all are, but they are on the website, I think. I can pull that up real quick. Just be able to do that.
Where do we find the membership application?
I am going to post it actually into the Slack channel. I'll put it into there. Oh, let me see if I can get, or actually it's under Learn More, isn't it? No. Learn More, our team. Oh, so here's our elder guys here. John and Mike and Ken. If you see any of those faces around, since they're not making a personal appearance, Ken did the prayer today. With that. So yeah, so I'm gonna post that. It's a Google form, and so it's probably, I don't know, take you 15 minutes, 20 minutes or something like that to fill up the application, just a little bit of your background, history, all that kind of fun stuff. And then we'll just want to sit down with you. And the primary objective of the interview is not just to totally interrogate you or anything and intimidate you, the process, but to just hear personally a little bit more of your story, any questions you guys might have. And so it's kind of a get to know you for either me or for the elders as you're kind of stepping in to kind of get that personal opportunity to connect, talk, ask any questions you might have, any ways we can help you out growing in the ministry of the church. And so those are the primary objectives there. So yeah, that means whether, it's an evening or, meet over here at the church, meet at a coffee shop, do a Zoom interview, whatever we got to do to kind of get an opportunity. I would say about an hour typically. And we typically do it if you're married, do it with your spouse or whatever. So it's kind of all one kind of thing there. And so I will put something, I'll put that application right after class today. I will drop that application in Slack channel, so you can complete the application. And then we just gotta set up that membership interview process there
Do we
too.
return the application, do we hand it in and then meet with somebody, or do we hand it in when we meet with somebody?
So it's gonna be a Google form, and so
Okay,
once it's in, it'll be submitted, and then whoever is doing the interview will have access to that interview there too. So, yeah, part of the trick will be just trying to figure out what dates and times work, whether evening or morning. You do it after church on a Sunday, you know, kind of you just want to stick around for a little while.
And are the membership applications, like husband and wife each fill their own out?
Yeah, typically, yeah. Yeah, and so a lot of it's pretty typical kind of stuff we've gone through this process already. But yeah, very, the final step here, and that gets some of your info to contact info, you know, that kind of stuff like that. Just to make sure we've got all that stuff all on that file and record, but yeah, a kind of final personal touch in the process. And so, yeah, any questions you didn't get to ask, or any of the deep doctrinal stuff we dug out last week on baptism or on theology stuff that you still have questions on, that's a great opportunity to just kind of go, hey, I wish you could have talked more about XYZ in the class. And so those kind of resources, I'm happy to kind of discuss further, and so have lots of fun conversations too. But yeah, and so you should be able to reach out pretty quickly to Slack. Let's see, my administrative assistant, I didn't remember what she had planned exactly. She was gonna try and put together a bunch of dates. So I'll have to touch base with her too. She may post something in that Slack channel too about different times. I know she was trying to collect times people could meet, so you could just kind of plug in with somebody and make that connection. But yeah, if there's a particularly good time to meet, you could just direct message in Slack and stuff like that too. Try to get you plugged in and get some time. I just did my first one from last year's membership class. One of the couples had a baby, and so they were like not able to do it. So I jumped on Zoom with them for an hour less yesterday afternoon. Get them through the process there. So, questions as we're coming to the end of the process here. Coming in for a landing. All right, well, without further ado, I'm gonna close this out in prayer. Any prayer requests? Anything I can pray for you guys today? It's great to get a chance to.
That I can get my PNC license, yes.
What is that?
Property and casualty, it's an insurance license.
Oh, cool. Do you have to take a big like test or something?
Yeah, it's kind of like a real estate license, but just for insurance instead. And I'm just slogging through all that information right now, so.
So you have to study up and kind of cram all of that info.
More or less, yeah. And then just get the license and then immediately forget everything you just learned.
Is that like an online test exam, or do you think they'll wait?
I don't know if the test itself is online. I think it might actually be in person and proctored. But the actual course that I'm going through is, so.
Cool, yeah.
But yeah, that's about it.
Nice. I'd love to pray for that. PNC test.
P and C, property and casualty.
Excellent.
I have a prayer request. This week I'm kind of wading into working mom waters. So I'm starting my old job back in Philly. I'm gonna be doing that part-time, and Zach and I have just been sick the last week, and so I feel like I'm starting this week already defeated. So just that would go well, and it would be clear to us if it's a good fit for our family.
Yeah. That's a big thing. It was just a couple I interviewed yesterday. The girl has been working with university job for back in Kentucky and all, and but she's got 3 kids, and she's like, oh my gosh, that's so much. That was like, yes, that's we will pray. And I know just coming out of being sick, I'm like, you feel like you're starting from zero.
Being sick with kids is a new thing.
Yeah, it's like you just don't have that leisure to be. You can't be. My wife, this is my wife. You just can't be sick. You're not allowed.
Thankfully, Michael has an immune system of steel, so
That's all
he can hold this work down.
awesome, yeah. So cool. Yeah, so we'll pray for those two things for sure. Anything else?
Sick grandbaby.
All right.
Blah.
Yeah. Oh,
So, her name is Talia.
Talia.
Talia, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, let's pray. Father, thank you so much for this group and just getting to know them a little bit and a little bit of their stories and how you brought them to this church. Just so thankful for the opportunity to talk about what you're doing here at Redemption City Church, opportunities to be a family together, to get to know you more deeply and be able to make you known, God, in the places where you have us. And so, yeah, pray for Talia right now, just for a quick, the sickness would swiftly pass. You bring her back to full health and healing and, all of the, all the toll that takes on grandparents, parents, and everyone else that's involved in that caring network. And so, yeah, we pray that sickness would not spread anywhere else, God, but that, you bring full healing. It just seems like a lot of people are sick right now. And so, I pray for grace for everyone dealing with sick people right now. Pray for Michael and Alyssa as well as they're coming out of that little sickness as well. And particularly Alyssa, she's stepping back into the working world again and doing it remotely, doing it with kids and doing it already with a little bit of depleted energy. God, we pray you just fill her with your spirit, strengthen her for the work you're going to call her to do. Would you just sense all the grace that is available for her as she tries to take these first steps back into this new world. Pray that she'd feel lots of support from Michael and just that broader network of people that are around her caring for her. It'd be just a lot of support available. Pray for the kids as they make the adjustment as well. This situation, it'd be just great grace there work. And pray for Daniel as he is looking at this PNC test he's got to take for real estate, that you would help him have discipline to study hard, to be able to retain everything that he's learned and then be able to really do well on that test and exam. Really bless the steps he's taken to get some new job skills, make some new money. Really bless the work of his hands there. That would be just a really encouraging step, and that he'd be able to land up a good job that would fit his gifts, talents, and abilities. So, pray blessings on each person here. Fill them with your spirit for all you're going to call them to be and do. We pray in all Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Insurance.
Insurance, what did I say?
Real estate. I said it's like a real estate.
Like a real estate. Oh man, we should have gone into real estate. You would have the blessing of God.
Yeah.
This other
Missing
thing.
by that much.
Yeah. Fortunately, the Holy Spirit takes those roads and intercedes.
It means
for
what
us. He knows what we have. It transposes the language to the proper key.
Which is the proper thing. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for teaching.
Yeah.
Appreciate all the learning out here.
Yeah, absolutely. This is such a joy to be a part of. I guess I could turn off the Zoom.